Hello and welcome to our fourth sales podcast. I have with me Richard Bowes, who is the UK and Republic of Ireland Sales Director for Knauf. Welcome, Richard. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, as Steve said, my name's Richard. I work for Knauf, which is in the construction industry. Been here just over 10 years and then 3 in the current role that Steve just mentioned there.
Thank you. Richard, I've got a whole bunch of questions that I really want to ask you. And I think we'll just get straight into it. So my first question is, how has the sales landscape changed for your salespeople over the last 12 to 24 months? And what impact has that had on the way that the sales team is now operating?
Well, it changed even before that, actually. That was the more dramatic change before. So we're very face-to-face selling focused organization, and that's symptomatic of the construction industry, actually. But we had a real transformational change at COVID time when we couldn't travel. And that was very, very painful for our teams. But some of that benefit has been kept into the last 12 to 24 months. So virtual meetings have been more prevalent, but they're still not the majority in our world at the moment. The challenging bit is we struggled with the personal touch. It became very digital and very one-dimensional. So we lost the hi, how's it going kind of activity because you go straight to business on Teams. So that had a bit of an impact. And also our teams weren't used to working. So even with their backgrounds, you have to professionalize yourself in your home environment, don't you? It's a different space. But actually, what has carried on is when meetings are appropriate to be online, saved on cost and time, our people are traveling a lot. So that part of it has been a good improvement. What has been not so good, actually, in the fullness of time, is we had a lot more internal meetings, which is really useful, better efficiencies internally. But as the teams then got back on the road a little bit more, that became a bit overwhelming. So we underestimated that impact and had to actually be a bit more efficient. The salespeople aren't as immediately available. And that's been a journey that we've tried to bring back in to help them be released back into the market, because I think we forgot how much time is done traveling. It's a big impact.
Yeah, it's massive. And do you think the salespeople are enjoying the role a bit more now that they are back out on the road?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I don't want to be too generalistic, but there's lots of people that are in commercial environments that like to be around other people. That's sometimes why they take the job. So that extroversion that a number of them have becomes challenging when you're locked in a box all day. So I think that part of it, they are delighted to be out and about. But then on the other hand of things, when you're at home, you can be much more controlled and organized. So it's a balance of the two, I think.
Very good, thank you. And if we look at the other side, research suggests that the impact of COVID has accelerated the capability and desire of customers to use digital methods of buying rather than spend time with salespeople. Have you seen that kind of impact?
Well, I think in general, that's a fair statement. I think in construction, it's a little bit less so. I mean, we get a bit of bad press in terms of our pace of innovation. And that bad press is fair, actually. It's not always a quick moving environment for innovation. But if I expand a bit on buying part of it, from the actual sale process, that's definitely become more digitized. So in terms of order processing, the actual selling process, creating that demand still has been very people focused. There's been more digital stuff, but in small stages, like using Teams better and our company investing harder in that sort of technology. But there is now a bigger growth in how we communicate with customers during that sales process. So we've invested a lot in specification writing software and self-serving for the design and architectural community. That part's coming thick and fast, but we still haven't changed the number of people in our business to turnover. That's not the digitization hasn't yet replaced people. It will come eventually, but we are a bit slower behind some other markets in that area. Still very much people focused to drive the solution selling elements of our business.
Thank you very much. And what do you think are the most important factors that are driving customers' buying decisions right now?
Yeah, I think when I think about that now, and I think about my buying decisions rather than our customers to try and empathize with how they work, I think it's around clarity and speed. So in my lifetime, my standards on how quickly I can get information just keep raising because of what I'm delivered It's not me generating that pace. Digital's moving so quickly. So if I give you an example, that clarity and speed, if I have to click 3 or 4 times in my purchasing process, I expect that to be the maximum, including payment. So now when I have to put my name and address in, and it's not auto populated by my iPhone, I think this is Victorian. So I think that the bit that we need to be careful of as our business, as much as any other, is making sure we keep up with that pace and ensure that the customer experience is quick and clear. But the other part of it, I think, is when you have an experience where that pace isn't there because the bar is so high, it really stands out. So if I'm Googling something and I don't get what I need quickly, it's binned and I don't go back. So I think that analogy is where I form that answer from. In my world, there's lots more of consultative selling that we need to do, but in general terms, I think clarity and speed is the number one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was doing some work a couple of weeks ago, and it was around customer service, and the real focus of some recent research was it's about making the experience effortless. So either the buying experience, or if there is a customer service issue, how can you reduce customer effort? Because it's the increase in effort that starts to frustrate people, that starts to annoy people, which I think plays into what you were just saying there. So
yeah, and I think the effort's getting smaller, isn't it?
Yeah, the desire to put any effort in, and even to the point, even to the point where we're looking at voice-based search now, aren't we? So what less effort can you put in than just saying find me a new car?
Yeah,
and it goes. Yeah. So as a result of the changes that we're talking about, things like the increased digitalization, maybe a little less face-to-face contact than previously, what are some of the implications for the structure of a sales team, do you think?
Oh yeah, our sales process is quite broad. So there's lots of different people in our job titles in our business that have an impact on sales. And certainly on the technical side, we've invested more in our phone lines and being able to respond with chat as well as a chat bot, if you like. So that part of it has meant that we've had to upweight our people that support the digital processes that we have. But as I mentioned earlier, we're not yet at that frame breaking stage to really offer something different digitally. So in terms of how our sales team operate, the structure of the team is still very similar, but the tools that we're giving them are more digitalized. So it will evolve, but we're sort of at a later stage than others, I think, in terms of that transition. The gap I've seen from our, myself included, is some of the software that we're using to help with the design teams requires a bit of a technology selling mindset rather than a product mindset. So it is a product, of course, but talking about how a digital application can help our customers, we're not used to doing. We're talking about this plasterboard or this flooring or this real objects, and that's been a gap that snuck up a little and that we're having to think about investing more in, actually. And in terms of structure, at the stage that we're in, we're having to invest more in people to get to where we need to be, and that's the right thing for us at this stage.
And what kind of things are you seeing then for the development of the sales team?
In terms of how they're learning?
Yeah, in terms of how they're learning, where some of the gaps might be, as you move towards, this new way of approaching the market.
It's really teaching our customers how to use our systems, because when we bring out a new software, which we're doing at the moment, Planner Suite, which is quite a revolutionary specification tool for customers, that's moving into Dealer Suite, which is for some of our direct trading customers. We need to know it better than our customers to teach them. And we've not gone through that process of really getting our teams to truly understand the long-term value of what this product will give. So it's harder for them to articulate it to the customer. And that's the bit that we're working on now.
Thank you. And maybe if I bring it a bit closer to home in terms of, you as a sales leader, how have you been impacted over the last sort of 12 to 24 months?
I actually think it's been quite positive. When I spoke earlier about it was hard speaking to customers and not being able to read gesticulation or buying signals and that kind of behavior, despite that, it's been really positive on the leadership side. I think for me personally and across our business, I'm seeing more engagement digitally as well as face to face. So the touch points are greater. That's helped with coaching, well-being. All of that part's been really positive, actually. And if I was looking into the future, I'll be seeing that as a potential negative. But what has rolled out and happened has been much better. And actually, if I look about the leadership of the whole business, we've had to and needed to invest in lots of digital benefits to our people. So in terms of points to be able to get discounts in certain environments, apps to use to check your safety, all that kind of stuff. We've really driven hard to help with our value proposition to try and get talent into our business. And actually, that's now a hygiene factor. Where we are now, we've made huge steps and are quite proud of where we are. But actually, for many people that are in the marketplace joining companies, that is now just the basics. So from a leadership perspective, I think it's been really, really positive in lots of ways, both direct leadership to colleagues and teams, but also as our business approach to our people in general.
It's interesting you're talking about, those additional benefits. I'm going to say something that might be slightly controversial here, is that I was reading an article about a month ago, and the core of that article was that organizations that provide these benefits to their employees, things like free lunches or fruit. I know Knauf provides fruit to the team because I've been in the office when it arrives. They're suggesting that it has less of an impact on increasing engagement than coaching. So actually having effective coaching in place in the organization has a bigger impact on engagement than those other benefits that you might provide. I don't know if you've got a comment on that.
No, I think I'd agree with that. The most important part is the coaching and development part. We're talking about language in our company about having a purpose, and to have a purpose in our business, it helps if you understand where you're going and the business is going, and that coaching piece, I completely agree. I think the bit that shouldn't be underestimated is the peripheral benefits, the hygiene factor elements that I spoke about, because certainly there's nothing better than direct feedback, as you all know, you're expert in that field. But we also have the ability to recognize people through our applications to celebrate success, birthdays, and all that kind of stuff, and we use that to aggregate up into employee recognition. But I think that can't be the sole activity. It's the peripheral benefit, which we use a lot. But as I say, I'd agree with you in terms of coaching is absolutely the best thing, the most important part of all of that.
So if I can ask you to sort of put your binoculars on and look into the future, what sort of trends do you see emerging in the next 12 months, that may impact either salespeople or sales leaders?
It's a tricky one. I think what's happening at the moment, it's been consistent, that there's now been a hockey stick in technology advancement, in terms of how the market's changing. And we discussed a little bit around pace and clarity, and actually that's really prevalent in our world. Things are moving so fast. We have a catalyst, which is Grenfell, which has created much more diligence around specification, fire performance, really critical. And our business is investing very heavily in people competency, as well as testing and underwriting what we say. And I think that's going to be important everywhere. I've talked about clarity, being crystal clear on what you can offer and how it works, and where the value is to the value chain that you operate with, is going to remain really important. And I don't think that's new news. I just think it's gathering more pace. That's the biggest ongoing trend that I see in my world, but I do think it reflects into broader industries too.
That's interesting. I mean, in the olden days, if I can say that, the role of the salesperson was primarily to help explain the product or service to the customer. And that was a role that has sort of been eroded through technology, through access to information that buyers now have. But it feels like it might be coming back.
I agree with that. And I think from a technology perspective, how do we then harness that? So if you are working digitally, how do you teach the customer or guide them or react to their answers? AI will play a part at some point, I'm sure. But in terms of chatbots in particular, they need to have triggers, don't they, on next questions. And and it's how you get to that. And certainly, you said in the older days, I feel like I'm from the olden days. Educating myself on this. I have a, as many people like me would have a bit of a untrust to, would it really work? Because I don't use chatbots. I find them, but I'm not the biggest demographic.
Yes.
that use chatbots. So it's I think understanding the power of it and trusting in the technology is probably quite a big step. But I think it certainly is for me in some of those areas, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and in terms of then of how you see sales leadership evolving over the next 12 months, what are your thoughts on that?
I think we always try and keep the bar as high as possible, and no one's ever perfect. It's never at a stage where it can't be improved, actually. So from my perspective, I think it's still about being present and making sure that you are really developing your teams and colleagues as much as you can. I don't think that's anything different than it would be. The leadership for me is still the same, regardless of market conditions. It's a standard that we need to maintain as high. I don't think there's anything new coming in that area.
Richard, I've got some quickfire questions for you, if I may. My first one is, what advice would you give somebody just starting out in a sales leadership role?
So it can be quite daunting moving into that area, actually. But I think for me, listening is really important. And when I say listening, I mean really listen, attentively listen, and make sure the person that you're speaking to knows that. The other bits that I think are really important is everyone's human. So be vulnerable, show humility. That's one of Knauf's values, actually, which really plays out and something that we're proud of for sure. And then finally, we talked a bit about coaching. Be generous and well structured with your feedback. So think about how you give it and how valuable it is, and if it is really valuable. But also be prepared to take some back and thank them for it, because no one's perfect. The leader isn't either. So feedback in both ways is really good. So that would be my advice on someone starting out in a new sales leadership role.
Very good, thank you. And my second quickfire question: what's your favorite sales book, blog, or podcast?
Well, sadly, I'm not a great reader. Concurrent with that, my attention span is not the best either. So I'm glad we're talking about podcasts, because they're the ones that suit me. A bit of a go-to for me is The Diary of a CEO. It's a very eclectic mix. There's always something you can take from it. It's quite a relaxed and almost unstructured in some ways view on things. So I quite enjoy listening to that in the car.
Very good. It's one that I've not listened to, so I'm gonna tap into that. The Diary of a CEO.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's how many podcasts you can listen to. I've got like 5 or 6 on a loop. Although to be fair, some of them are just comedy. What do you believe are the 3 most important attributes to be a successful salesperson?
One in particular is professionalism. I think that's a really important mantra, but that word covers a lot of things. So for me, it's do what you say you're going to do by the time that you say you're going to do it. So that's really important. And someone that can deliver a no professionally is as good as a yes. So whether you get on with your counterparts or not, professionalism always shines through. So people will submit to your relentless professionalism, and I think that's something which I think is can't be argued with. So I'd say that's my first one.
Yep.
The other one, and I think salespeople can be challenged on this, is be authentic. Being credible is absolutely key. It's okay if you don't know something. There's no need to make it up, but just be really, really inquisitive. So being authentic is a really key one for me. That gives you credibility to the customer. And then the final one, and we've used this language before together when we worked, Steve, is be a trusted advisor to the customer. Good salespeople need to be an asset for the customer as much as they're an asset to their own business. It's got to be something where there is a win-win. Both parties get some value from it, and that's when salespeople become very, very valuable to their customers and create a prosperous, healthy partnership, long-term partnership. So the professionalism, authenticity, and trusted advisor are my my key, really important attributes that salespeople should withhold.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard. And of course, all based on character, aren't they, as opposed to capability?
Yes, yes, very much so. It's a good point.
And what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given in sales?
It was one that actually hurt a bit. So with feedback, some of the best feedback is when it touches something in you and you think, oh, I should do something differently, and I'm going to do something differently because of that. And the advice that I got given wasn't just related to sales. It was as much leadership as sales, actually. And I was I use another Steveism, actually, in Pity City a little bit. Right. And someone said to me, "What are you going to do about it?" I was sitting there, bit of tough love, thinking, what am I going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? I need your help. But there is some tough love there, as I say, and I didn't like it when I heard it. But it's up to you to create the answers in the future. You can't expect it to be handed to you. It's up to you to create something really great. So that kind of humbled me a little bit, and it actually, despite the painful feedback initially, I came out of it stronger and did better because of it. So I thought that was really, really good feedback that I got, and advice that I think is worth sharing with people that listen to your podcast.
Very good, thank you. It's reminding me of a phrase that I use in the sales, and I'm probably going to massacre the Mandarin here, which is Xiao Zhu Day 2, which means that the man who waits for the roast duck to fly into his mouth is going to be very, very hungry.
It's the same. Yeah,
it's the same idea. I'm paraphrasing. It might be we'll have to wait a very, very long time, but but I love it. I love it as a phrase. Let's talk to this idea that we need to make things happen ourselves, and other people can help, but actually it's down to us if we want to succeed.
Yeah, quite absolutely.
Final question for you. What is the poor sales habit that niggles you the most?
Yeah, I think I'd even use a stronger word than niggle when I was thinking, as you said that, what it could be, because I think upon reflection, it's something that I early on in my career didn't do enough of, and even now I would challenge myself to make sure that I do it more. And that's not listening. Sometimes you're so keen to explain something or something new that's in your locker, and you can't offer a solution if you don't know what the customer actually needs. So sometimes they don't even know. It's a matter of discussing it and working it out together. So it's your job to kind of help that. And the only way you can do that, same as it is with leadership, is really listen and understand. Once you know that, that's the opportunity then to provide solutions or a no. So yeah, that really annoys me when I'm sitting there looking at someone and just not listening, and for all sorts of reasons. But yeah, that's the biggest niggle I'd have.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you for answering the quickfire questions.
Pleasure.
And thank you for joining me on our podcast. I've really enjoyed chatting with you today. Hello, if today's conversation has resonated with you in any way and it's provoked some thought or comments, then please do comment. We'd love you to subscribe as well to our YouTube channel so that you can get updates when we have more of these conversations with other sales leaders. And of course, if you would like to contact me directly, you can do at steve.bussey@salestrong.co.uk. Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.